This is Lauren West, and you're watching the Lauren West channel. If you want to stay informed on economic policy and political developments that directly impact working Americans and the businesses that employ them, make sure to subscribe. Now, let's talk about what's really happening in California's fast food industry. California just forced one of its largest industries through a 25% wage increase, and the results are exactly what critics warned about. In April 2024, the state raised the minimum wage for fast food workers to $20 an hour, up from $16. Supporters called it a long overdue victory. Opponents called it economic suicide. 18 months later, the data is in. Nearly 20,000 jobs have disappeared. Prices jumped over 10%. Workers who kept their jobs saw hours slashed. And the corporations with deep pockets are replacing cashiers with kiosks while small operators close their doors. The promise was a living wage. The reality is fewer jobs, higher prices, and an industry in crisis. The law driving this upheaval is Assembly Bill 1228, signed by Governor Gavin Newsom in September 2023. It does two things. First, it mandates a $20 hourly wage for any fast food chain with more than 60 locations nationwide. That means McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, and every other major chain gets hit, but your local taco shop doesn't. Second, it creates the Fast Food Council, a government body with the power to raise that wage every year without another legislative vote. Right now, the council is already eyeing a bump to $20.70. And there's no mechanism to pause or reverse course if the industry collapses. The law gives unelected bureaucrats permanent control over labor costs in a $500 billion sector of California's economy. When the wage hike took effect on April 1, 2024, fast food workers at covered restaurants saw immediate raises. Hourly pay jumped by at least $2.50 for most workers. The share earning less than $20 dropped by 60 percentage points overnight. That's real money for people living paycheck to paycheck. But here's what the law's architects didn't account for. Those raises only help if you still have a job, and thousands of workers don't. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, California lost over 6,000 fast food jobs between September 2023, when the law was signed, and April 2024, before it even took effect. Businesses started cutting staff the moment they saw the mandate coming. After the wage hike kicked in, the losses accelerated. By September 2024, employment in the sector had dropped by more than 16,000 positions compared to pre-law levels. A separate study from the National Bureau of Economic Research, using anonymized payroll data from thousands of restaurants, puts the number even higher at 18,000 jobs lost. While no single dataset proves causation beyond doubt, multiple independent sources show California fast food employment declining far faster than the national average. That's not a coincidence. That's a policy consequence. The industry had three options once the law passed: raise prices, cut labor, or shut down. Most businesses did all three. Prices at California fast food restaurants rose by roughly 10% within months of the wage increase, according to Revenue Management Solutions, a firm tracking restaurant pricing nationwide. McDonald's, which had already raised menu prices 40% between 2019 and 2024 due to inflation, kept climbing. A Big Mac meal that cost $7 and changed in 2019 now runs past $10 in many California locations. That's no longer fast or cheap, and customers noticed. Traffic to California fast food chains dropped as prices rose, creating a downward spiral where higher costs drove away the volume needed to sustain those costs. Cutting labor was the other immediate response. Franchise owners across the state report slashing staff by 15 to 20% just to stay afloat. But the deeper cut came in hours, not headcount. According to surveys of franchise operators, 89% of California fast food workers have seen their hours reduced since the law took effect. Nearly 9 out of 10. You can pay someone $20 an hour, but if you cut them from 35 hours a week to 20, they're making less money than before. A higher wage rate doesn't help when your paycheck shrinks. And finding another part-time job to make up the difference is nearly impossible when every fast food chain in the state is doing the exact same thing. The third response was closures. Chains started shutting down underperforming California locations and shifting resources to other states. Some franchisees walked away entirely, deciding the math no longer worked. The California Restaurant Association warned before the law passed that 75 to 100,000 jobs could disappear. They weren't fear-mongering. They were reading a balance sheet. Fast food operates on profit margins between 5 and 8%. Labor costs typically run 25 to 35% of operating expenses. When the government mandates a 25% wage increase in an industry with single-digit margins, the options are brutal and limited. You either pass the cost to customers, eliminate the cost through cuts, or close the business. California chose to pretend there was a fourth option where everyone wins. There wasn't. The corporations that survived are now investing heavily in automation. Self-order kiosks are standard across major chains. Mobile app ordering has been prioritized and expanded. Some locations are testing AI-powered drive-through systems that take orders without any human interaction. A touchscreen doesn't need $20 an hour, health benefits, or annual raises from the Fast Food Council. It also doesn't call in sick or file wage claims. The technology was already in development, but California's law accelerated deployment timelines by years. That's not speculation. That's the stated strategy from corporate earnings calls. Replace labor costs with capital investments, and the problem goes away. Except for the workers, of course. What makes this especially contentious is the political battle over whether the law is actually working. Governor Newsom has repeatedly pointed to research from UC Berkeley economists claiming the wage hike caused minimal job losses. That study looked at data through mid-2024 and focused on a narrow subset of covered restaurants during the immediate post-implementation period. Other researchers using broader data sets over longer time horizons reached very different conclusions. The National Bureau of Economic Research study analyzed payroll records from thousands of restaurants and found significant employment declines. The Cato Institute, using Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics data, confirmed the same pattern. The methodological difference matters. Early snapshots miss delayed effects like closures, automation rollouts, and hour reductions that take months to fully materialize. Broader studies capture those effects. That's why the conclusions diverge. The Fast Food Council's ongoing authority means this is far from over. The council can raise the minimum wage annually and impose additional regulations on scheduling, benefits, and workplace conditions. Each increase will trigger another round of price hikes, job cuts, and automation investments. The law doesn't just set a wage floor. It creates a permanent regulatory body with power to continually reshape the industry without legislative approval. That's unprecedented. And it's dangerous because there's no built-in mechanism to reverse course if the policy fails. The council answers to political appointees, not market realities. This isn't California's first experiment with heavy-handed labor policy. Assembly Bill 5, passed in 2019, reclassified independent contractors as employees in an attempt to help gig workers. It devastated freelancers. Writers, photographers, musicians, and translators lost work overnight because companies couldn't afford to convert them into full-time employees with benefits. The backlash was so severe the legislature had to carve out dozens of exemptions, and voters passed Proposition 22 to protect rideshare and delivery drivers. The pattern is consistent. California sees a problem, passes a law that sounds good, ignores warnings from people who actually work in the industry, and then acts shocked when the policy backfires. AB 1228 is following the exact same script. The economic ripple effects extend well beyond the fast food industry. California's cost of living is already among the highest in the nation. When a quick meal jumps from $8 to $12 or $15, families adjust. They eat out less, they cut discretionary spending. That reduces demand across the broader economy. Small businesses near fast food clusters see less foot traffic. Delivery drivers get fewer orders. Suppliers sell less products. The wage increase was supposed to inject money into the economy by putting more cash in workers' pockets. But if those workers lose hours or jobs entirely, the injection never happens. Instead, you get contractions. The law also removes a critical entry point into the workforce. Fast food employs roughly 500,000 people in California, making it the second largest low-wage occupation in the state. For young people working their first job, for immigrants learning English and American workplace culture, for single parents needing flexible schedules, these positions matter. They're not meant to be lifetime careers. They're meant to be starting points. When you eliminate 75% of those jobs through automation or closure, you're not lifting people into the middle class. You're pulling up the ladder behind you and telling them to figure something else out. Except there is no something else for a lot of people. Entry-level jobs exist because they serve a purpose. Pretending they don't just makes vulnerable workers more vulnerable. The other unspoken consequence is the precedent this sets. If the Fast Food Council model works politically, even if it fails economically, expect California to try it in other industries. Retail, hospitality, healthcare, logistics, any sector with significant low-wage employment becomes a target for similar regulatory bodies. And once you create a government panel with the power to set wages and working conditions without legislative votes, you've fundamentally altered how markets function. Businesses can't plan. Investors can't forecast. Workers can't rely on stable employment. Everything becomes subject to the political whims of appointed regulators who face no accountability if their decisions destroy jobs. The frustrating part is that nobody disputes the underlying goal. Fast food workers deserve fair compensation. The work is hard. The conditions are tough. The pay has historically been low, but good intentions don't override economic reality. You can mandate higher wages, but you can't mandate that businesses stay open or keep hiring at the same levels. The market adjusts, costs get passed on or cut out, and the people the policy was designed to help often end up worse off than before. That's not a theory. That's what the data shows is happening right now in California. So here's where we are. California raised fast food wages to $20 an hour to help low-wage workers. Hourly pay went up for workers who kept their jobs in hours. But federal employment data shows nearly 20,000 jobs lost. Prices rose over 10%. Hours were slashed for almost 90% of workers, automation accelerated, small operators closed, and the Fast Food Council is already planning the next increase. The law promised a living wage. What it delivered was fewer jobs, higher prices, and an industry restructuring that leaves the most vulnerable workers on the outside looking in. This is what happens when policy ignores math.